Hello and welcome to the first episode of Whiskey and Wheels. This is a new series where we will be meeting some of the more interesting car collectors who also have an affinity for whiskey. Today we are sitting down with Justin Husman, who is one of the owners of Phoenix Insurance, and I've actually known him for a couple of years, and I can tell you in all honesty, he's one of the most interesting people I have ever met. He's got himself into some very interesting situations, which he will hopefully tell us about today. Well, thank you for joining us, Justin.
Happy to be here.
And first things first, why don't we start up with some whiskey? I brought a bottle that I thought Justin would like, and Justin brought a couple of bottles that he thought I would like. What do you want to get started with?
If we're going to do a tasting, we should probably start with lowest proof. I think that your Glenlivet is probably lowest proof. And Scotch we should probably always start with because Glenlivet's not too smoky. It's going to be nice and sweet.
All right, you've had this kind before?
I have had this kind before. I like Caribbean cask. I used to be a big...
You want any ice?
I'm ice-free, thank you. I used to be a big rum guy, and the Caribbean cask rums or the Caribbean cask scotches I really like.
If you wouldn't mind. All right, so I have given Justin 5 whiskey and automotive related questions in advance. So we're gonna go over those. We're gonna drink a little bit of whiskey, and then hopefully we're gonna be able to get some of the more interesting stories out of Justin. And then later on the show, he's gonna take us for a ride in a couple of his cars. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, what is your favorite car that you've ever owned?
The one that I drive every day, my Jaguar XK. It's big and it's comfortable. It's fast enough. I think it's 300 and something horsepower, but it's a Grand Tour, so it's got, like, road presence is kind of a way to say it, but it makes me feel like James Bond every time I get in. And this is not just for your interview, this is kind of the way I dress most of the time, and I think it all kind of goes together. They're cheap right now to buy, but to maintain is how you know how wealthy someone really is.
All right, that's good. And why does it make you feel like James Bond?
It's such a beautiful car. It's black and it's long and it's a sports car. It was designed by the same guy that designed the Aston Martins of the early 2000s. So it's really beautiful. If I could, I would drive an E-Type every day, but I don't think that's realistic. Frankly, it's not realistic to drive a 20-year-old Jaguar convertible either every day, but this one does it for me.
All right. What is the worst car you've ever owned?
Kia Spectra. When I first met my wife, and she wasn't my wife at the time, obviously, so when I first met her, her car broke down. And her father said he had a friend at the Kia dealership. I advised against it, and I said, but I didn't have that place. We've been dating for like 2 weeks. So she bought this car. I inherited that car shortly after we got married, and I drove that car for 2 years because we really couldn't afford anything else, and I hated that car. Never gave me any trouble, never broke down. I don't think I changed the oil more than twice in the couple of years that I drove it, but I just hated it.
What is your favorite kind of whiskey?
Whiskey with an E or whiskey with a Y?
Well, I guess it started with a Y and then...
So when I was in Scotland, whiskey is spelled with a Y.
Okay.
Whiskey is spelled with an E. So whiskey with a Y, my favorite is Glenlivet. It's one of the bases that they blend together to make Famous Grouse. And it's a great Scotch. I really like it. I can't find it anywhere now. It's really sad, but it's my favorite Scotch whiskey ever. I've got, I think, like 3/4 of a bottle left. My favorite whiskey is one.
Is this actually spelled?
No, it's the well. That's what the guy at the distillery told me in Scotland. Is that Scottish whiskey or Scotch is spelled W-I-S-K-Y. American whiskey is W-I-S-K-E-Y.
This probably doesn't even.
Probably don't have whiskey on the bottle.
Oh, it does. But there's no E.
There's no E, right?
Yeah.
So you learn something. That's how you become interesting, Ken. So my favorite whiskey with an E is, we're going to try it next probably. I love old Jim Beam. One of my hobbies is going to estate sales. I'm a collector just by my very nature, so I collect a lot of things. And I go to estate sales and often I find decanters that have whiskey in them from the 80s and older.
Oh, so they're still full.
They're still full, right. And Jim Beam is... They did all these decanters. If you go to Antique Store, you'll see all these different shaped decanters. And so I'll always buy them if they're full. And that's my favorite whiskey. In fact, I brought one here if you want to pull it out.
Yeah.
So as decanters, they're useless. We're going to spill a bunch when we pour this thing.
So this is an actual
flush
bottle of
whiskey.
whiskey.
Take off the trunk.
Oh, wow.
No, that's the rumble seat. Take off the trunk.
Of course.
Right? The trunk where the tire is. There you go. And there's our whiskey. So I look for them. This one's torn, but I have probably 4 or 5 more of these in my house that are full of Jim Beam. This particular one, this batch was distilled in 1973, and it's about, it is, yeah, it's about 8.5 years old. Generally, this is pretty good stuff, and always worth picking up in an estate sale, and that's my favorite whiskey.
All right. Is there an attainable dream car that you plan to own one day?
Yeah, this is a tough question. There's a lot of cars that I dream about. I would say the car that I probably will own one day is a 1956 Ford Thunderbird.
Is that the first generation?
First gen Thunderbird, the little Thunderbird. One, they're just beautiful, but my father had a 56 Thunderbird when he got my mother pregnant, and he had to sell it in order to afford me and to have a family car.
He's an expensive child.
More than you know, but yeah, he had to sell it to be able to afford me and to be able to have a family car. And I have a couple pictures of me sitting on the driver's seat, and then he spent the rest of my childhood basically collecting toy 56 Thunderbirds. So I've been surrounded by Thunderbirds my whole life, never real ones. And so that's probably a car I would be buying.
Is there a particular color you wanted in?
I'd probably be red.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic car.
All right, and the last question, what is your favorite car movie?
My favorite car movie is American Graffiti. It's a great movie just about kind of a slice of life in a small town doing nothing and just cruising around. The cars are, the focus of it sort of, but not really. It's Lucas's first movie, so.
So I know you've had this before, what do you think about it?
It's good, I love Caribbean cask. I really picked up my taste for Scotch when I went to Scotland a few years ago. My agency won a contest from one of our insurance companies to send us to Scotland. Well, while we were in Scotland, I was staying at the Glenlivet, and I was outside having a cigar, and I met this Middle Eastern guy, and we got to chatting, and I love people, I love asking questions and learning about people, and we got to chatting, and he invited me to come to the bar and have some drinks with him and his friends and just chat. So I went with him, and the big bottle of Johnny Walker Blue came out, and we were sipping on it and just chatting about Scotch and Scotland, and this young man came in, and I am loud. And so I was talking to his buddy and asking questions, and the young man stared at me for about 5 minutes, and then he got up and walked away.
He was friends with the person?
He was friends with him. He was part of their group.
Okay.
And all these other guys were my age, so, you know, early 40s. He was probably in his 20s, and he got up and walked away. And then this little hostess came by and said, "Sir, this is a private party. You've been asked to leave." and I was talking to my friend who had invited me over, and I said, "What?" And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, and I said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to leave. This is a public bar, right?" And so I sat there, and she said, "Sir, you've been requested to leave." I said, "Whoever wants me to leave, raise your hand."
Love it.
And everyone there just kind of, "No, I don't care." And we kept talking. In fact, one of the guys that wasn't my buddy reached over and poured me a little more Scotch.
Well, good for you for not leaving. So I've heard that you've been involved in a couple of police chases before.
I have.
How did those go?
Well, I'll just say I've never gotten a ticket for speeding in my adult life. One of my favorites is when I used the Jedi mind trick on the police officer. So I was in my Jaguar, and I was coming back from a Jaguar Club meeting. I was wearing my maroon blazer. I had an ascot on and the whole 9 yards.
Was this in like the late 70s?
No, this was probably a year ago. Actually, probably not a year ago because that was COVID, right? But this was a couple of years ago. And I was
You're not
coming back.
wearing an ascot during COVID?
No, ascots are out. I wore my mask instead.
Okay.
So coming back from this Jaguar party, it was a beautiful day, spring day, and I'm cruising back to Dallas on 35, and I was going at least, if not, and suddenly there's lights behind me. And I generally pay close attention, so I'm smarter than that, but I wasn't paying attention. I was just enjoying my day. This police officer comes up to me, and he leans over the side of the car and says, "Is there a reason you were going?" And I said, "Well, I thought the speed limit was 75. Now, I don't think that has any relevance in this discussion. I'm still going. No, speed limit 65 here. And I said, "Oh, well, my bad." And he said, "Well, give me your license." And he walks back to his car and he comes back out. So just have a nice day. Just slow down a little bit. That's not even my most exciting chase.
But you got pulled over at a 65.
Yeah.
You're doing like 1% above the speed.
And I played a Jedi mind trick.
And they let you get.
Let it go. Because I'm living my best life. Who wants to ruin that for somebody? If a guy's wearing an ascot, I think that goes a long way, right?
So was it the Jedi mind trick or was it the ass?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Okay,
A little bit.
right. And I think you've been in one or more tube chases. Right?
Oh, I've been in several chases. In the milk truck back here in the DIVCO. So I was coming back from a car show in Colorado. It's loud because you drive with the doors open. You're sitting on top of the motor. We do have a stereo in there, so it's loud. My brother's driving. He drives this truck fast. So we're
how fast?
I mean, I would guess that he doesn't go any. If it's open road, he's probably going to run about 80 all the time, if not more.
Probably feels very quick.
We've gone over. It's a lot like re-entering the atmosphere, and you'll see. So we're driving and we're booking, just going, and this is a long stretch of nothingness. 2-lane road, nothing else. So we get into Hugo, Colorado, and the road widens to 4 lanes. And this policeman pulls up next to us, and I do the Dumb and Dumber thing. Hey, how's it going? And he's man, pull over! And he's yelling at us, and so we pull over into the park. He gets out of the car with his hand on his gun, screams, "Why were you running?" And says, "Get out of the car and lay on the ground." Oh, Jesus. So we get out of the car, we lay on the ground, and we explain to him, look, we just can't hear anything, we can't see anything. And we managed to talk him down. He asked us for our insurance card, and we don't have one, even though it says insurance 2 feet high on the side of the truck. I don't have an insurance card because there's no place that stays dry on the truck. We explained to him we don't have that. He asked for our registration, which we also don't have. And in fact, I don't know that I've registered that truck in half a decade.
No, so you got pulled over, no registration, no
nothing,
insurance.
no registration, no insurance.
Wow.
He'd been chasing us for about 15 minutes, he said. He was just about to call up the helicopter, but he didn't know how to describe the truck. He said, all I knew was it was really tall and going way too fast. So we calmed him down, and finally he lets us go. And his last word of advice was, hey, you need to have better mirrors in that thing. If an emergency vehicle needed to pass you, that you should be able to see them. And my brother says, well, to be fair, you couldn't pass me. And then we drove up.
So no insurance.
No insurance. Well, we had
no
registration.
Right.
And
then he felt that the vehicle was unsafe.
100%.
It's just like, have a nice day.
He's like, you know what? Either I don't want to mess with these guys, or you know what? It's not worth it today. Who knows?
Did you have the ascot on?
I didn't have the ascot. I travel in t-shirts, so I was pretty low key.
I gotta start bringing you with me whenever I'm speeding.
Well, it's not guaranteed, but I do my best. Another speeding story. I was on a rally in this car, and it broke. And
what happened?
The clutch went out. We were on top of a mountain in Oklahoma. So I coasted down the mountain, left the car, and ended up catching a ride with a buddy who has a Jaguar F-Type R. So I get in the car with him, and he's racing with a friend who has a Viper, and we're going fast. We get on the Oklahoma thruway, and we're going. Cop sees us and turns around, gets on the other side of the highway.
You went to jail, right?
No. Now, I was a passenger for this one, so my magic wasn't 100% good. The driver got a ticket, but he pulled us over. I've never seen a human being so mad as this police officer was. The driver of the car had his license hanging out the window when he walked up, and the cop snatched the license. What were you doing going over miles an hour on my tollway? Is exactly how he said it. And the driver just shrugged. Then he went to go talk to the Viper guy. Viper guy was a veteran, and he talked the trooper off the ledge. The guy issued tickets for us and let us go on to our destination. No one got arrested, nothing got impounded.
How much were the tickets for?
I can't tell you because I think he fought him because there was no specifics for the speed. It just said unsafe driving.
What do you think caused him to not take you guys to jail?
I think it's probably, if I had to guess, being a veteran, it's that he was a veteran, the guy in the Bible was a veteran. And and that's helped me a couple times as well.
Oh, so you're a veteran?
Oh yeah. I spent 4 years in the Navy.
Thank you for your service.
Well, unnecessary. The worst thing I faced was alcohol poisoning, really. So.
Okay, well how about this? Why don't we pour another drink?
There we go. My blood is getting too thick for this story.
And then you tell us a little bit about this alcohol poisoning story.
Sure.
What do you want to do next?
Let's do, if we're doing by proof, which we should.
Okay.
Let's try the old one. Now this is.
I'm gonna let you pour.
Yeah, it's gonna be a mess either way. So this juice was distilled in 1973, the same year I was born. And it's aged for about 8.5 years. This is Jim Beam, 100 months old. Let's see if I can do this.
If I can help you when you're ready, let me know.
Now, a lot of people will tell you that you can get lead poisoning from this. Hadn't killed me yet, so.
How long have you been drinking it for?
Every time I find one, I buy one. Probably been 5 or 6 years.
Oh, you have multiple.
I have like 5 or 6 of these things.
Oh. All right, well this has like a nice rich caramelly kind of cola
So
smell.
it doesn't age any further into the can. The guys that made this whiskey were working 48 years ago for the drink we have right now. Think about that. It's kind of cool, right?
Right.
There you go.
All right.
Cheers.
It tastes a little bit like regular Jim Beam, but much smoother. Kind of like a little bit more of a caramelly, more pleasant flavor.
That's the lead, the decanter.
Ooh, lead. Okay, Navy for 4 years. Where were you stationed?
Japan.
All right.
I lived in Japan.
Were you on land or were you on a
No, I was
ship?
on boat. I was on 2 different boats.
Okay, and what were your roles on the ships?
I was a cook. Mostly, I was bored with that, so I became a firefighter after a while.
Did you ever put in any fires?
Yeah, I fought the main space fire, and it was.
Tell us a little bit about that.
When I was in, we had breathing apparatus that were like you think of a fireman with a tank on his back. So we had canned oxygen that you would strap onto the front, and they had these inflatable lungs. So when you fight a fire in the main space, it's obviously pretty small, right? So you're going down into the ship. The whole time, I was less worried about the fire than what they taught us in training, which is if you bring your arms down too tightly, you'll knock all the oxygen out of your little lung bags, and then you'll pass out. So I was not worried about dying from the fire. I was more worried about doing this and not even passing out, but just looking like an idiot in front of my butts. Other than that, it was all drills and training and stuff like that. So, but I was a cook, and
How long did you do that?
4 years.
So you're cooking for 4 years. So how many meals did you have to make a day?
It was close to 1,000. It's very hard for me to cook small amounts. Like I do cookouts here at the garage on Fridays for the guys, and I always buy too much food because the one thing, now the Navy I think is different now. I don't think the food is nearly as good as it was when I was in, but
Well, that's because you're not cooking.
well, I don't think it has anything to do with me, but we had one night, we were pulling into Okinawa to pick up Marines, right at dinner time. My boss says, we need to feed these Marines that are coming up with. And I said, look, we haven't planned for this, we're not ready for this, we don't have any food. He said, you figure it out. Okay, cool, we did it. One thing I know about Marines is that if you feed them, they will come. And they will never stop. And we were good cooks, although this night not so much. So we we ran out of our regular food. All of our leftovers were gone. So we broke out pizza crusts. And we started making pizzas, just like an assembly line making pizzas. And these crusts are like big tortillas, basically, right? So we're cranking out pizzas. And now dinner's supposed to go till 6 o'clock. We're at 7 o'clock. And we're still cooking. And we haven't cleaned up. And it doesn't stop. And the Marines keep lining up. So we start putting the most ridiculous things we can think of on pizza. At one point,
Just to get them to not want anymore?
Please, don't eat anymore. There's no way they'll eat this one. And it became like a challenge. We're like, you know what? I got clams and chocolate chips. Let's do it. And,
Really?
and seriously, we put out more than one clam and chocolate chip pizza. And there was finally a staff sergeant comes up. He throws a piece of chocolate chip and clam pizza on the line. What the hell is this? Well, if I had to guess, that one looks like, I would say clam and chocolate chip. Might even be some corn on there if you're lucky. And he goes, why are you serving us this garbage? I said, man, we've been working for a long time. We didn't plan for you. I know that you guys ate before you left base. How long are we gonna have to do this? And he kind of, okay. And he went and talked to his people, and that was the end of the line, and that was it.
That was
finally
got to go home.
And I'm lucky I didn't get in trouble for clam and chocolate chip.
Clam and chocolate chip. Now, did you actually try a bite of it just out of curiosity?
No.
Want to pour a little more whiskey here?
I think we will. So this
All
time
right.
we'll go with the old Fitzgerald. If you're a whiskey guy, I'm sorry, you can't have it. So this is really hard to find.
Okay.
Old Fitzgerald is it's a beautiful bottle to start with. I picked this one up in 2018. At the time, this was probably the most expensive whiskey I've ever bought.
Now, is this something you can buy anymore?
I mean, if you can find it, sure. Old Fitzgerald does this every year, but it's very hard to find. This is a bottled and bond. So you know what bottled and bond is?
I've heard it and I can't remember what it is.
So bottled and bond is true American whiskey. Okay, so like champagne is only made a certain way. This is true whiskey. So bottled and bond is from a single batch in a single season, aged in government warehouses for, I think it's at least 8 years.
So like government is overseeing
kind of
the aging of whiskey.
Kind of. So it's a marketing thing more than anything else. But like this is, when they say the traditional whiskey is whatever, or the traditional champagne is whatever, this is the most traditional form of bourbon. Here we go.
Cheers.
Kampai. I haven't had any of this myself in a couple of years.
All right.
There's so little left, I say.
I appreciate you sharing it. Okay. Yeah, it's extremely smooth.
Yes.
It's got like a pretty nice, bright flavor. Very easy drinking.
Now, I've got some several $100 bottles of Scotch, and they're just phenomenal because they're old. I've got 30-year-old Scotches.
When you drink them, are you like this?
I don't think about the money, just like you don't think about death. It's just there. It's a thing. Now, when I first open an expensive bottle, that's when I ask that question. And without fail, I lie to myself and say, yes, of course.
And there's an area we haven't touched on before. Automotive breakdowns.
Yeah, I drive a lot of miles in weird cars, so absolutely. I think probably my best breakdown story is in the DIVCO, the milk truck. We were driving through Oklahoma, and we were outside of Ardmore, Oklahoma. The windshield wipers on that car are this long, so they don't do any good. Okay? I've literally had them fly off when I'm driving down the highway and using them because the pressure is too much for the press fit that's on there.
Okay.
So I've lost windshield wipers before. So we're driving through the rain in the morning. It's so wet and there's no defroster. I'm crouched in the middle between the two seats, wiping off the windshield so my brother can see the drive. And suddenly I have a lot of pain in my ankles from where the transmission fluid is blowing up around the shifter. It starts with little droplets and then it's literally squirting hot transmission fluid into the cab.
It's coming into the
Oh
vehicle.
yeah, it's coming in from around the shifter.
Wow.
And hitting our ankles. It's very hot. The truck is on fire at this point. There was insulation around the transmission, probably the only insulation in the truck. So there was insulation and that had caught on fire and the flames were coming out from underneath the truck. So my brother hops out of the truck, runs inside, asks the woman, "Do you have a fire extinguisher?" She says, "Yes." "Why do you need it?" So he grabs it, runs outside, puts the fire out, and then we're sitting there, and this guy casually walks out of the convenience store and says, "What's going on?" We tell him what's going on, and he says, "What does that thing weigh?" And we tell him, and he leaves, and comes back probably 10 or 15 minutes later with a truck and a trailer and his young son. He disconnects the drive shaft, hooks up a manual come-along to pull the thing up on the trailer, loads it up for us, straps us down, says, "Let's go to Dallas." Drives us home.
How long a drive is it?
About 2.5, 3 hours, something like that, right? Drives us back, and we get to Dallas. We're, "Hey man, what are we gonna do?" He says, "I just bought to get a built truck." That guy's been a friend ever since. He's actually given me a free car. He gave me a Bug-Eye Sprite that he had on his property that somebody had given him. And when this car broke down a couple of years ago on a rally, I actually was able to call Teddy, the same guy, and he came out, picked this one up, and towed it back to Dallas for me. It cost me nothing more than a shirt and a hat.
Wow, this guy is like your guardian angel.
He's a great friend. I mean, really, we've not spent a whole lot of time together aside from towing my shitbox cars back to Dallas, but great guy.
All right, so let me ask you here, and if you need a second to answer this, I know this is kind of a weird question. What do you think's the most exciting moment you've ever had in a car?
When I was 16, I drove an International Scout.
That's a very cool car.
Very cool car. And I was driving it, I was young, I had gotten my braces off probably a month before I got my license. And there was a guy in the right-hand lane who had broken down. He did not have hazards on, he didn't have his hood up. I had no way to know he was broken down. That's about a 40 to 50 mile an hour road. And I smacked him in the back and I knocked out all 4 of my front teeth.
On the steering wheel?
On the steering wheel.
Did you have a seatbelt on or no?
Well, I did, but not no. This was a 1970s car, so no shoulder belt. So I knocked out all 4 of my teeth, and they were beautiful. And I've suffered with that ever since. I'm constantly fighting dental battles, But so that was, I would say, that's probably the most exciting moment in a car.
One of the things that I really like about cars is they're seen as a form of transportation, but they're really not. They're really a lot more than that. You live so much of your life in your car. Like I said, like they're invented as transportation, but if I ask you what your memories are, good memories, bad memories, and you pretty quickly come up with all kinds of of pretty significant memories in your life that happened in your car. And I think that's one of the reasons I collect cars at the end of the day. It's just the experiences and the life that you live that's tied in with that.
Absolutely. My first 944 that I totaled, that was the most exciting moment, I guess, in cars, but it's a thing that I'm not proud of, but absolutely it's a super important moment in my life because I totaled my first Porsche. That's pretty baller to say. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think let's not go past this. I have questions.
Okay.
Okay, so you totaled a Porsche. Did you break any teeth?
Not on this one.
How old were you?
Well, this was just a few years ago. If I'm being honest, what happened is I got into the HOV lane and I probably slapped one of those things with my mirror. And one of those, not this car.
The little plastic stand.
Little plastic stand, and I probably slapped it with my mirror and I overcorrected right into the wall as a result. I was able to fight it back. I broke the front wheel immediately, but I was able to keep it in the lane and it wasn't good. I can still see the marks to this day.
On the barrier?
Yeah, where it happened, yeah.
Okay.
So, because you can see the white wrap that was on the car, the big white streak on 75. In Allen, go check it out. Yeah, that's one of those moments that, like, I'm not proud of it. I'm not happy that I wrecked my first Porsche, but it's one of those moments, right? My wife still refers to it, you know. Are you going to kill us today? So there's that. And yeah, you're right.
How often does she say that?
Okay. You know, I do drive. I drive quickly everywhere.
You drive efficiently.
Yeah, efficiently, thank you. But yeah, you're right. It's all part of our life. You know, some of my earliest memories in my dad's car. You know, I grew up and he had Volkswagens, and one of the Volkswagens he had when I was a baby, I'll never forget this. It would snow inside the car because he had a Volkswagen convertible, and something was like the top didn't seal right, so the snow would come in the car. And that's one of my earliest memories is in the back seat of the car, standing up. This is pre-car seat. Standing up in the back seat of the car.
You stood in the car whenever you were driving in.
Oh yeah.
Was it a Rapid or was it Comic Gia?
This was a 1968 Bug.
Oh.
So it was a Bug that had some sort of hole in the top, and I would stand in the back seat and let the snow hit my face.
Now let me ask you, looking back on that, does it seem like more of a positive memory or more of a negative memory?
Yeah, it's a positive memory just because it's one of those, it's a snapshot. You know, we all have those snapshots that we can go back and visit anytime.
Right.
And that's one of those for me. I mean, if we're going to be honest, it's when life was simple. I didn't have all these cars to keep charged and driven.
It's a lot of responsibility, yeah.
I think it's probably time for more whiskey. What do you think?
All right, we got one more bottle we haven't tried.
No, we have two more bottles we haven't tried. So we're on to,
Can we do this?
well, let's see. We want to go the right proof. So this is on
Okay.
proof. Yeah, we'll do this one.
Okay, because I'm a huge fan of Jack.
Are you?
Yeah, I love Jack. I've never had that before, so tell me a little bit about it.
This is a single barrel, hand selected. This was selected by my friend Fred. He has a garage here.
What does hand selected mean?
So that means that Fred got a package from Jack Daniels and maybe went to the distillery and they let him choose which barrel that he wanted to buy. Basically, the distiller will take, looks like a big turkey baster, and it's called a wine thief actually, but he'll take a wine thief.
Wine thief.
That's what it's called. So he'll take it out of the barrel, give you a little taste, and you decide this one or this one, this one or this one, and then you buy the barrel, and that's what Fred did.
What does that run?
I want to say it's 15 or 20,000 probably for Jack Daniels. I don't know. Make a comment, tell me I'm wrong, but I think it's.
But we're calling it 5 figures.
Yeah, it's
Your
in the
Fred
Yeah.
casually spent 5 figures
Oh, yeah.
on whiskey.
Yeah. He's like, because I want my own tag on it. And I will not lie, I'll probably do the same thing. I have a client and a friend who just bought a liquor store.
Because if it's 15 grand, you could buy another 944 from that.
True, but I can't have whiskey with my name on it. And that's the key.
Well, you've got some very interesting cars behind us. You mind giving us a little tour and telling us a little bit about them?
Not at all.
All right, great.
So this is my second 944. As I mentioned, I wrecked the first one. This car has actually been totaled 2 times. The first time it was at my house and there was a hailstorm. It was totaled.
Can we still see some of the damage from
Yeah, actually, you can probably, if you look close, you can probably see some of them. Not a tremendous amount.
Did you get repaired?
Here's a pretty good ding. No, I didn't. Here's a pretty good ding.
So they totaled it?
Yeah.
Just from some couple dings?
So when this car was totaled the first time, I think your average 944 was probably 6-7 grand.
Oh, sure.
So any body work was really expensive. And so the second time it was totaled, there was a tornado here a couple of years ago, and as you can see, something was dragged across the hood. So I used to park everything outside my office. We have a carport there, so this was there. I had a Firebird that I had just finished that was there. It was, I think, an 89 Firebird. That was completely crushed by the carport. This was totaled this way, but I had just put a brand new clutch in it, so I didn't want to throw that money away.
The only thing that was damaged was the hood.
Yeah, and so what I'm going to do is take the hood and everything completely off it. I'm going to put a full fiberglass clip on the front end and turn it into a complete race car. It looks like a race car now, but it's going to be a race car. We already started in the back here doing fiberglass work with this hatch. So next steps for this one is the front end is going to come off. Most of the interior is going to come out. We're going to do a wide body kit on the rear, do wider wheels for it. We're going to do this one ourselves. Check out Husman Bros for that. So this one is my 1955 DIVCO Lightning milk truck.
What does DIVCO mean?
DIVCO is Detroit Industrial Vehicle Company. Okay. They made this same body style from about 1932 to about 1982. We took the body of our DIVCO and we put it on a 1994 Ford Lightning. So this has a 351 Windsor. As I've told you, it's fast. You'll see here shortly. The whole thing is Ford Lightning.
No joke.
No joke.
This
entire car,
a pretty big undertaking.
yes, we probably spent a little over $100,000 just to get it done. And then we've spent way more over the years and continue to get it better. This was actually a standing drive vehicle, so most of the time these cars were driven standing up with the seats folded back, getting the ice on. We think this one was probably like a pie truck or a dry cleaning truck because it wasn't as rusted as most of the ones we found. It was really hard to find one of these with the short window and it wasn't completely destroyed because this era was cooled by ice, not cold plates. These are so rare because even not just the back panels would rust out because of the ice, right? But in the front, you had a box for your leftover milk and your cheese and things like that you deliver. So they would rot.
So what's your favorite part of the car?
So the favorite part is probably the most recent thing. I have a friend who does a 3D printing business, and he was able to print me these hubcap tips
look at that.
that have our company logo.
Insurance logo.
Yeah.
This fender, it's just a very pretty part of the truck. Is it totally original?
Yeah, 100%. So that's the original fender. I actually was rolling into that first car show in Pleasant, and some guy, because most of the DIVCOs don't have fenders quite like this. They're a little more industrial looking. When you get into the 50s and 60s, they get a little different. And some guy asked me, hey, that's a great truck. What are the fenders off of? And I said, well, this car. And if you look here, it's the same thing. This is original as well. Later DIVCOs don't have this kind of fender. And you can tell a later DIVCO and a longer DIVCO because they've got a flat roof and flat rear fenders.
All right, we've got a really beautiful 997 Carrera GTS right here.
Yes. So this is my 2011 997.2 GTS. Let me open it so you can see the engine compartment. It's mostly stock, but it does have a couple things going on. So we have a Fab Speed intake, and it's also got the matching exhaust, all carbon fiber.
It's real carbon fiber?
Yeah. Now I bought it this way. I can't take credit for it.
Now, is this like a heat shield back here? Is it just change the sound, or do you think it actually adds any horsepower?
I mean, everybody will tell you that an air filter adds some horsepower, so I gotta believe that it does. So this is a 2011. This is the last generation of the 997. So Porsche people believe in lasts. This is the last of the small 911s. This one is a wide body as opposed to the normal. You've got a 997, so you've got a normal narrow body 997. So this does have the wide body. It's got a couple other little goodies that your normal 911s don't have from this era.
How long have you used it for?
About 2 years. I recently removed the PPF from it, so it had what I have to assume was original PPF on it, the paint protection film, and so it was yellowing along the edge, and I had that taken off. But other than that, just a great car. Really hard for me to think about losing because though I do love this car. I'm going to say that about every car because I love every car, but there's a lot of reasons I like this car. Just the layout feels so good. It's so nice. I don't know if you can see it in your shop, but it's got the painted white console. When I bought this car, that's what sold me on it. I had no idea what kind of car this was. The GTS is a fairly rare-ish car for Porsche. They build them at the end of runs. This is a 997.2 GTS, so it's 400 and some change horsepower. Just
definitely has brake pickup more than.
I mean, yeah, it still is easy to drive. I mean, a lot of people will look for the manuals, and everybody likes a manual, right? But for me, this car is a Tiptronic. I won't say automatic, but this car is way smarter than I am, and I don't think I could shift as well as this car does.
So you definitely would not be able to shift as fast.
No, certainly.
The manuals are
You know what?
to a certain degree more fun.
I grew up driving manuals, and honestly, if I never have to drive one again, I'd be okay. My 944 is one, and yes, it's fun to roll through the gears, but really, I don't feel like I can. I don't know. I don't have as good a control of myself as this computer's do. That may be an anti-car guy sort of thing to say, but a most mean automatic, my friend.
That's fair.
Was this specially built to
Yeah.
fit the engine in there?
Yeah, the whole thing was specially built. These originally came with mostly 4 cylinders. Like the top speed on this vehicle when it was built was probably 40 miles an hour, maybe.
I gotta say, riding around in this, it's pretty cool.
It's a lot of fun. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to.
Alright.
Is as we're driving around, how many people are completely oblivious to this 8-foot high, 10-foot long cartoon truck? Because
It does look like a cartoon truck.
the number is way too high of people that are completely oblivious. When it's running right, it's actually a pretty quick-ish car. I mean, it's heavier than the original F-150 was, certainly. I will say, I am the world DIVCO drag racing champion.
Yes!
So we went to Hot Rod Show in Salina, the KKOA show where I met Coach Patrick. And that was the only show I'd ever been to where another DIVCO showed up.
No joke, you had 2 of these?
2 of these. So this one is Ford powered, and his is Chevrolet powered.
You
They race
probably
each other.
had a superior engine, I would imagine.
I think so, probably. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really done much
Well,
to this
did you
engine.
win?
Yes,
Then you had a better engine.
twice. It's running pretty good today, so I guess we'll try the highway.
All right. I
'Cause
feel
it's
like
not the full experience without it.
I feel like the highway is going to be the less fun part of this vehicle.
Oh, it's the most fun.
Okay. All right.
It's the most frightening, but what is life without being reminded we're going to die, right?
Boring is what it is.
Wow, let's make it exciting.
Okay, so you and your brother, you guys own Phoenix Insurance. So what's going to be the difference between Phoenix Insurance and another automotive insurance company?
Insurance is not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's really specialized, even down to companies. So one company may give you a good rate, another company may give you the worst rate because you don't fit into what they think is profitable. So what we do is we find the right fit for our clients for the right company. We go out and shop around. We happen to specialize in exotic and classic car insurance. We're actually one of the largest exotic and classic car agencies in the United States.
So what can you guys do for an exotic car owner that another insurer's agent could?
So a lot of companies don't want to ride exotic cars at all. There's a lot of restrictions on who they're willing to put insurance on, and it's a high risk, you know. You drive them, so you get it, right? And so there's a lot of risk, and the value, the more expensive they get, the less interested people are in doing it. I have the ability, because of how much I do, I can say, hey, look, we need to give this guy a chance. Let's give him a shot. He's a good client, so he can get insurance. Exotic car insurance, you want specialty insurance that understands what you have, so that you're actually working with somebody who is going to try to make you whole.
All right, well, you've had a lot of interesting stories regarding cars and whiskey. Do you have any interesting stories regarding insurance?
Yeah, I got a couple actually. So we had a client. Apparently, this guy had made a claim because he had had what do we call her? A working girl at his house. Maybe a hired companion would be a way to say it, right?
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I think that's what's implied. She stole his Rolex and some money and some other stuff from his house. And he explained, apparently in great detail, to the adjuster exactly what they were up to prior to said theft. And so the adjuster was telling us, and we're kind of laughing, but it capped off with the same thing happened nearly a year to the day before. The same exact thing, Rolex, money, something else was stolen from his house.
Does this seem suspicious?
It absolutely did. He didn't get paid either. So that was the end of that one. That's still my favorite insurance story.
Well, did he get paid for the first one?
He did.
So he's like, hey,
This worked.
I had a prostitute over.
Same thing
Took
again.
everything.
Yep.
Took like
Yeah.
30, no,
Exactly.
40 grand.
Exactly.
Do you have any notable clients in insurance?
Actually, Eddie Munster is a client of friends. So
Oh.
I met Eddie at the KKOA, which
What's
is
his real name?
Butch Patrick. Yeah, so Butch has he has a Munster coach, the Munster car, and he goes around to car shows and to cons and things.
Wait, let me ask you, because Rob Zombie,
Yes.
he has a dragon.
Yes.
And isn't that Dragula also from
Yes.
Monsters?
Dragula's the coffin drag car.
Did Grandpa drive that?
Grandpa drove it, and so at the time, Butch had that, the Dragula, and the coach. So I met him at a car show, made friends with him, actually had gone to a couple car shows with him. And Butch is a great guy, he's a lot of fun.
Now, you mentioned YouTube channel.
Yes.
I think you have a couple YouTube channels, right?
I do. I have one that's all insurance stuff. 90%.
Sounds super exciting.
It is not, but it's useful, I think, because insurance is really complicated, way more complicated than Flo and Aaron Rodgers would have you believe. What we try to do on our Phoenix Insurance YouTube channel, which I hope you'll link below, what we try to do is educate in a way that's more interesting than is usual for insurance education. The more knowledge that I can put in other people's heads, whether they buy from my company or from anybody else, I'd rather that everybody go into insurance a little more prepared, and that's the point of the Phoenix Insurance channel, our other channel, which is Husman Bros. I hope also link below.
I will absolutely.
Okay, so Husman Bros is, I've got a lot of friends that have garages where they store their cars, their own private man caves, so we're doing garage tours, which I just went to one. The guy has 3.56s, two super rare. One of his 3.56s is one of 200 cars built, and so that's what the Husman Bros is for, so that you can kind of see what it is we do and how much fun we can have doing this. So.
Very cool. All right, Justin, you've given us quite a few fantastic stories. I think we got time for one more great story. You got something in mind?
So I bought this RX-7 out of the Navy, excited about it. Went on a date with a girl, and I was driving down Greenville Avenue and Forest Lane, and I wanted to take a turn onto Forest Lane. Have you ever driven an RX-7?
I don't know.
Okay. First gens are very squirrely in the back end. There's no weight back there, and they will spin in a heartbeat.
Okay.
So I turned left onto Forest Lane from Greenville Avenue, and as I turn, it's just damp enough that I do a complete spin around, and I did not plan on it. So I'm spinning around on Forest Lane. I end up facing directly into the gas station. So I pull in, up at the pump, put the emergency brake on, hey, do you need anything to drink? And she is like this. And I'm just as cool as a kid. Need anything to
As if
drink?
it was just planned.
This is what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm gonna grab some cigarettes and get something to drink.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like 2 or 360
This is
degrees
how I
right
pull
to the gas station.
This is how I pull in everywhere. And for years she said it looked like you absolutely, I didn't tell her for a long time, but that was not on purpose. She said, I thought that you completely meant to do that, and that changed everything I had planned
Yeah,
to
it
do.
did.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yes, I walked into that gas station and I'm surprised I didn't collapse about 10 feet from my car because I was just as freaked out as she was.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, Justin Husman, for coming on to the first episode of Whiskey and Wheels, and thank you for watching. And if you would like to appear on a future episode, let me know in the comments below. And I'm going to place some links for Phoenix Insurance and also for Rose website and YouTube channel and the Phoenix Insurance YouTube channel as well.
Thank you.
And for more episodes of Whiskey and Wheels and for more automotive content that you cannot find anywhere else, click here to subscribe. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, cut it. Thank you, sir.